Hello, everyone, and thank you for stopping by. So, Squid Game season 3 has come out, and I've already binge watched the entire show, so I decided I'll do like a quick review on it. I'm gonna have the first part be no spoilers, but there's a couple of parts where it's gonna have to include spoilers in order for me to really get across my point. So, if you haven't seen it yet, you're safe, and I'll let you know when you're not gonna be safe. But yeah, anyways, let's jump right into it. So before I get into the details, season 3 was really good, but there was also a lot of really bad parts of it. And I feel like it's kind of like a common thing for people to say in reviews, but there's just so much that they did so well. But there's also, on the flip side, there's so much that they did so wrong. I'm going to go over a lot of the good stuff that I enjoyed first. I mean, not in great details because I don't want spoilers, but one of the things I really love about shows is when there is no plot armor and it's unpredictable. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me because they always have movies where you have or shows and movies where you have your favorite characters and you want to see them do well. You want to see them succeed. You want to see the good guys win and the bad guys lose. But this show does not do that. It has people that it makes you really enjoy and like, and you do not know if they're going to be living or they're going to be dead at the end of the show. And that kind of thing just makes shows really exciting. And I really like the unpredictability of it. And this show gets that to a T. But I feel like it's just a really common theme where you have the characters that you like in a movie or a TV show, and you just know that they're going to win. There's going to be a happy ending, and maybe one or two people will die, but it's always going to be a happy ending. This show, like, does not do that. You don't know what's going to happen. It's all completely unpredictable. You have the main characters, but they're not safe. They could die at any moment. And you also know that, like, there's only really one or couple winners in this. Not all your favorite people are going to survive it. And that whole knowing that just kind of makes the show so much more exciting, I feel like. And yeah, I feel like I'm glazing that a lot, but that part of the show I really loved. And another thing that I really enjoy about shows, kind of just in general, when they do it, is when there's not really like with Star Wars, there's the Jedi and the Sith, and it's like you got the good guys, the bad guys, and everybody's either good or they're bad. But it's not really how real life is. Like, in this show kind of does that, where like you have people that are clearly bad, but there's also good parts about them, and you have people that are good, but there's also bad parts about them. And like, nobody's really good. They're always like, everyone is in this game for selfish reasons, but like nobody's like truly good or truly bad. Everybody is actually out here for their own safety. They want to win their own amount of money. They don't really care about anybody else, even though on the outside they might say that they do. But overall, these people are out watching for number one. And the show kind of portrays that really well, where they'll like talk well on the outside, but then they're actually have their own agendas and they're trying to just win the game their own. And also, the more people that die, the more money they get. And that's all they really care about in the end. And there's people who kind of, they want to be good. They don't want to kill anybody. But then as soon as that door's open, they kind of just turn bad. And you can kind of see the character development of like their true selves come out and they become like these terrible people, or they actually are good people. And you can kind of see that progress as the show goes on. And I think that's like a really good thing that they do in this show. Another thing that the show does well is they do really well at making you like certain characters and hate other characters. And I say hate very lightly because there's characters in this where you go back and forth on whether you like them or not. Like, they'll do things that you like don't like, but then they'll do something that you like. And it kind of makes this whole back and forth. Like, is this person, like, do I like this person? Do I not? I don't know. But like, they don't really have any backstory for like any of these characters. But you just have these characters, and when they die in the games, you actually like feel it and you really like miss them. And it's like they do really well of getting you to really like these characters in such a short amount of time. So now let's talk about the plot a little bit. There are things in the plot that I really liked, and there was also things in the plot that I really didn't like. So let's go into that, and it'll be a good smooth transition to the things I don't really like about the show. But the part that I really liked about the show was the A plot, like the story that's going on with the games, like with Gi-eun in the games and that whole story. I feel like they did that part really well. But there are like B and C scenes that are going on in the background and that stuff. I'll get into that later, but I really didn't like what was going on with that. But without going into too much detail, at the beginning of this season, Gi-eun is kind of like put to the side for the first few episodes. He's kind of in this state of depression, and you kind of forget he exists at some points. I mean, he's there, and there are like pivotal scenes with him in it, but it kind of focuses on the sub characters and kind of follows them around more, and they have more screen time than Gi-eun. I really liked how they did that because like at this point of the game, like Gyun has kind of checked out, and that might be a little bit of a spoiler, but anyways, I don't know how else to explain that. But it does follow the other characters that he has befriended, and the other characters, like I said earlier, that they've made you really like. But I feel like it's a really good like showing of like how Gyun has checked out at this point, and the other people still have hope and they're trying to survive. They're trying to win this game just because they don't want to die. And the other people, it also follows like the bad guys that just want money, and it follows them more than it usually does. And I think that's really good because it has that both sides where it has the people that are in it to just survive. They're like thinking about how can I get more money? What can I do? All right, now let's transition into the stuff that I really didn't like. So season 3 continues like the B plot that's going on with the detective, and I'll just say whenever those scenes came up, I just got bored and I really just wanted them to end. I'll get into it more when I get to the spoilers section, but their whole story is just uninteresting and I just really didn't care about it, and it just feels like more like an afterthought at this point. But like I said, there's not really much I can talk about that too much without having spoilers in it. So if you don't want the spoilers at the end, just suffice it to say that the B plot isn't that interesting, but the A plot, fantastic. The A plot does kind of dwindle towards the end, and I will get into that with the spoiler section as well. But anyways, let's move on. The next thing that I really didn't like is how a lot of the characters, their character development towards the end just kind of felt rushed, and almost like to the point where a lot of these characters, they should have followed a lot less because like we really didn't care about them. And they would add like these scenes where you're like building on their character, and it just like all of a sudden it culminates and it's the person's gone and you just really don't care about the person to begin with. And I just feel like a lot of that was a little bit too much. This may be like a controversial view, but I feel like you don't really need to have a character complete their arc all the time in order to have a good show. Like I said, like earlier, they just had these characters that we didn't honestly care about, that just like they had to like rush in and get their character arc completed before they died off. But like, do we need this guy to actually decide if he's a bad guy or a good guy in order for him to die? No, we can just let him die and leave that up in the air wondering. We don't ever have to actually know what happens. But just to like rephrase, there were just a couple characters where they felt like they had to complete their full arc, but they just like, we only cared about the full arc for characters we actually really cared about. But they had a lot of little subplots of characters they really didn't care about, that they kind of felt like they wasted a lot of time on just showing them like kind of like, I'll go more into it in the spoiler section, but there's just parts where it's just like they wasted a lot of screen time, and like honestly they didn't really need it. Actually, that's about all I really have to say before the spoilers. So right now, spoiler warning, this is where you want to end off if you haven't seen it and you don't want spoilers. Okay, I'm going to assume everybody who didn't want spoilers paused and left it right now. So let's move on. So the character I was talking about is, I don't even know his name, but he's the character 125, and like he's kind of ends up becoming a drug addict, and I don't know, he just like has like really drawn out scenes where he's like having these visions, and I don't know, he doesn't even really have like a character arc. He just kind of like ends up becoming a drug addict, and he starts having like hallucinations, and the group decides to go kill him. So they just go kill him, and I don't know. It's just really confusing, and there was a lot of screen time wasted just on this guy's hallucinations. And honestly, I didn't really care. And I think like if you've seen this show, he should have died in the game previously, because he takes the last drugs that the Thanos had in his little cross thing, and he's like on the jump rope thing, and he's high as a kite. And I just feel like it would have been a better end for him just to be, oh, I got high before I did this, and maybe have him have a vision of the jump rope being like messed up or something and killing him that way. But anyways, to save you guys some rants, I'll just leave that there as an example of a character arc that they kind of like focused on that I really didn't care about. But there were a couple of others. So now let's officially talk about the B plot. So pretty much through half of season 2 and all of season 3, I almost called him the sheriff, the detective is looking for the island that they're on. And there's just a lot of wasted time of them looking for them, and they're slowly finding out that their captain is actually working for the Squid Games, and he's like this bad guy. But like they don't find the island until like the last 30 minutes of the show, and they get there too late, and he's like climbing up the ladder. He like snuck in, he climbed up the ladder, and then he sees that they have 30 minutes before the place blows up, and he runs in and sees his brother, yells at him a little bit, and then just leaves. Like he spent all that time finding the island and just nothing happens. Like if you cut out that entire plot there wouldn't have changed the outcome of the story at all. Nothing would have changed, like absolutely nothing. Like nobody really cared about it. Now let's talk about the C plot. I'm calling it the C plot, but it's the I don't remember her name. I'm terrible with Korean names. I'm sorry, but she's the guard that's following the female guard that's from North Korea, and she's trying to save the guy that she knows the guy's daughter, and that she has cancer or something like that. I feel like at the beginning and even like season 2 to like half of season 3, I really enjoyed when it would follow her because it was kind of cool to see the background and like what was going on in the back end of it. But I feel like at the end it kind of just got kind of dull, and like her whole ending just really doesn't make too much sense. And like I don't know, I'll just kind of leave it at that. But it's just like I feel like her story could have been wrapped up a little bit better. But I did enjoy like seeing the back end of it and like her having interactions with the other guards, and like her trying to stop the people from harvesting organs and stuff like that. So let's end off with talking how the show ended. I feel like it had some good parts to it and some bad parts to it, and I feel like that's kind of been the theme of this. But anyways, it ends up that the baby is the winner, and Gi-yoon ends up having to kill himself in order for the baby to survive. And I'm not entirely against Gi-yoon dying, to be honest. Like I said, I feel like I really enjoy shows that people don't have plot armor. It's just him and the baby left. I feel like he put himself in that situation when he really shouldn't have. I mean, when he's fighting player 333 at the end, he could have easily stepped on that button at any point and just made it so when he killed that guy, because he was planning on killing that guy anyways, but he was going to kill him, and then he could have got away with the kid. And then the show wraps up with the detective ended up getting the baby and all the money. And he kind of like gave this kind of hint where he just kind of was like all excited to have the money, and he didn't really give a crap about like where the money came from and all of that. But him getting the baby really doesn't like make any sense at all. Like he gets dumped with this baby. He doesn't know who the hell the baby is. Who's the baby's mother? Who's the father? I don't know. He doesn't know. He was never around. He never found out. He was never had any scenes with the baby until then. And I feel like they could have had like 100 different ways to end with the child rather than that. And I feel like that was kind of just rushed and not really thought out very well. But the last thing I'm going to bring up is the frontman and how he ends on the show. I just feel like he was portrayed as this like heartless person that just like has no feelings, and he just doesn't care about anything. And then just suddenly he like gives Gi-yoon's money to his daughter, and just kind of has like a good ending where he ends up being like not that bad of a guy. But this is the same guy who made friends with a bunch of people in the game, and then like ends up executing Gi-yoon's like friend at the end of season 2. He ends up like executing him, and he spent the time in the games with him and became like really good friends with him, and just without a second glance executes him. But then he like at the end he's like, oh, Gi-yoon's my friend, I care about him, so I'm gonna go do all these good things. I'm gonna save the baby and all this other stuff. Essentially, he was a really, really good bad guy. He's just one of those people where you kind of wondered maybe he was a good guy, but then like it should have just been like this whole, maybe you wonder he's a good guy, but then he's actually this cold hard killer. He's this terrible guy. Just let him be that way. Don't try to like have a redemption arc for him. I hate that. But anyways, I'm gonna end the video off here. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And also let me know of any TV shows you'd like me to review in the future, and if you'd like me to go back and review season 1 or 2. Also leave a comment on how you feel the show went. But anyways, be sure to like and subscribe, and thank you guys for stopping by. We'll see you next time.